Hi, welcome to this video tutorial in Pro Tools. In this session we're going to be looking at levels and looking at panning. Okay, so one of the things about levels is that you may want to normalise your tracks. So what normalising does, let's just make this track a little bigger for us, is it takes the highest peak, so in this case this one just here, so it takes this one and uses this as the benchmark and then brings everything else up. So say that this level here, let's just flip over onto this. So if we watch this level, let's just solo it. Okay, so that went up to -2. So it's not got much difference to go. So from -2, I hope everyone just saw that. Let's just do that again. So do it again, and if we watch this and the number at the bottom here, the highest level it went to was -2, only for a very short amount of time, but that's enough. Let's zoom out again. Okay, so what normalising is doing is it's taking this and it's increasing everything. If I went to 0 dB, so we could do that in Audio Suite, Other and Normalise here. And I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see this. So we can set it at 0 dB and it will take this, the whole file, and it will render it. It'll increase this, so when this one peaks here, because this is the highest level, it'll be at 0 and everything else will be 2 dB higher. So we'll just hit render on there. Okay, so that went larger. And let's just, is it playing from the same place? So if we watch this time, we can see that it went up to 0. So this could be quite useful to just go through and normalise all of your tracks. What lots of people do is they normalise them by grabbing all of them at the same time and then hitting normalise. But all this will do is it will find the highest peak, so for example in this one, and it will keep all the other ones relative to that, so you need to do them separately. I'm going to actually undo it because I haven't got time to go through all of them, but that's just one way of being able to bring those levels up. Okay, let's just get rid of that tempo. Fit those on a little bit better. Okay, so to change your volume, you've got a couple of different options in here. In your edit window, you can open up the I/O on this section, and this gives you a volume control here that we can click, so you can change the volume on here, and this could be quite useful if you're not wanting to change from one position to the other all the time. If you want to set it back to 0, just hold down the Alt key and click, and that will reset it to 0. That goes the same for all controls really. So that's one way of being able to see it on here. If I just go back to the beginning, I don't know whether you'll have noticed, but on the track there's a little fader here, and what this does is it will just change all of this whole waveform. So if I just increase here, you could just watch this. You can see the actual waveform getting bigger or smaller depending on what you're doing, so it can be a quick way of just reducing or increasing that whole track, but you've got to really know exactly what you're doing. Again, Alt and click and that will get you back to 0. So there's a couple of options on here. If we go over to the mix window, Command equals, then you've obviously got your big faders, so you can change these like this. If you want to do smaller increments, again, let's just zoom in. If I just grab this at the moment, I'm going from -0.9 to -1.1, 1.3. If you want to make it finer increments, hold down. I'll just zoom out so you can see my command. The command key, and you'll be able to do it in the finest increments that it can do. And that goes the same for other controls as well, such as pan. So that's just a nice way of being able to, obviously it takes ages, but if you're just trying to fine tune something, then that's the way to do it. And again, Alt click and you could do all of them. I'm just going to switch my all group on and move all of these down, and then remember to switch it off again afterwards. And I'm just going to do a very, very quick mix with this. Lots of people do mixing in different ways, so don't take this as the hard rule of what to do, but it's just an example. I'm just going to jump to okay, so some vocals right at the beginning, of course. So how I always start is I always just bring up the vocal. One of the things that can happen is lots of people start with the drums. So they go for the drums at the beginning, start bringing those up, and then find that you don't have any headroom at all. Now, I'm sure you've been told that once you get to 0 on here, if you go any higher than that, then you're clipping the track, and we don't want to do that. It will cause distortion and sound horrible. So one of the good things to do is start your lead vocal at about -6. So I do it on this scale here, so you could just see it. So, and again, if you just want to do increments, oops, I'm holding down the wrong key. There we go. So that's -6. Now it means that we've got loads of headroom to be able to get us up to our 0 on here, so that's fine. But it's just something that I've used quite a lot, because then when you start mixing everything else in, you're going relative to this vocals. Okay, so normally I would then start bringing in the drums as well once I've listened to the vocals, but as it is, we're starting where the acoustic guitar is, so let's just bring that in and see how that goes.
Something is burning.
Okay, so bring that up.
As you're talking to me, and something is breaking. In my heart or in my head, nothing is changing. All the explanations, nothing is changing. And I can feel it in my head, and you know.
Okay, so we've got another guitar over here.
All that you've been doing, and you know how much I've been hurting, and you know.
Okay, now one thing I should say about the vocals is they do go all over the place a little bit, so let's just zoom in on there. So you can see that it sort of starts quieter, then goes louder, then louder again. And normally we would use, if we're using effects, we'd use compression to be able to help this, but we're not using compression in this assignment. We're just going to be using level control. So in future videos you'll learn how to automate this. Okay, let's go back over. Oh, and that will have changed where we are going to start from. So we'll just go straight to where the drums are from here. I'll switch this on.
Well, someone is talking.
So I always start with the overheads. Oops, I need to relabel this. It's not overhead left, it's just overheads. So I start bringing these in.
I think it's you, but I can't tell. Nothing is changing. I hear my own voice start to yell, and suddenly silence. As you're
and then I bring the rest of the drums in.
Walking through the door, nothing to say now, 'cause I don't know you anymore. And you know all that you've been doing, and you know how much I've been hurt.
Now the toms don't come in for ages, so I'm not bothering with those. Now let's just see what else is playing in this section. So the electric guitars came in here, so let's listen to them.
Anymore, and you know all that you've been doing, and you know how much I've been hurting, and you know.
So that sounded good. Let's just jump to the next one. Obviously I'm doing this really, really quickly. You would take your time to do it. So let's listen to that lead guitar. Now remember, there's no vocals now, so this is more the lead instrument, so we want to bring that up. Okay, so that's not too bad. And then there is another electric guitar. These two you have to choose of whether you want to blend these in or not, so let's just go to that backing vocals.
It's all I wanna be, there's nothing left for me, there's nothing left for me.
Okay, so that's a really, really rough mix, but you can see that from that vocals, I've not had to bring everything up really, really loud to compete with it. And if there's any point where I think the vocals are feeling a little weak, I've got loads of headroom to bring it up. One thing I should have got already is we should have a master track, so we can just go to track and new or shift command N. And let's create a stereo master fader, and then we can just make sure that we're not peaking. And as you can see, it sort of knows already it's only gone to -3 on there, so we'll just press play again.
Yeah, you know.
So we're only going to -3 on here, so we've got a bit more headroom. But you can see that even though this lead vocal is all the way down at -6, actually once you start adding everything else in, we're going up to -3 overall. So we haven't got a huge amount of headroom, and it's something to be aware of. Okay, so that's how we can work with our volumes. The next thing to look at is panning. Now lots of people think that everything should be panned really wide. If you imagine your room and you've got a speaker over in this side and a speaker over in this side, when you're panning, completely to the right is all the way in this speaker, and completely to the left is all the way in the left speaker. So for example, lots of people go onto drums and these are automatically panned like this, fully left and fully right, and it means the drum kit's spread completely across the whole mix. And actually you might not want that. We might only want to go to 70%, say. And again, if you're finding it hard to get to that increment, then just hold down the command key and we could do that. So that might be how it is instead. Oops, and I've just realised I've done it on the fuzz guitar instead of the drum overhead. 69 will do. So obviously you'd want to listen to this, see how it sounded in the mix. So if I just solo the drums now. They'll sound quite a bit wider. I could bring them back in. So they're not quite as wide now, depending on what setting you do. 70 is a good place to start, approximately. I'm not worried too much about it being perfect here. And then what you want to do is you want to bring in the other drums. Now, a very good way of doing this is to listen to the drums, the overheads, and try and listen to where something is, and then pan an instrument. So say, for example, we want to work on the snare. And you can sometimes tell just by what's jumping up here, so it's somewhere on the right. So you can try panning it somewhere else and see it doesn't really fit. I'm not doing this properly. This is just so you get an idea, so I'm not saying exactly where it is. I want you guys to find it. But what you do is you just blend it in. You might need to bring the volume up and down just so you can hear it a little bit better. But that's what should happen with all of the drums, and the same with the toms. The toms aren't exactly in the centre, and it doesn't mean just because it's a floor tom, for example, it's all the way on the right. You know, you've got to find those positions and where it fits within the mix. The same then goes for acoustic guitars. Lots of people, and other guitars where you've got multiples, lots of people here would go, oh, we've got 2 acoustic guitars, bam, bam, left and right, that's it. But actually, if you listen to a lot of mix, they're not all completely central. If I did that on all the instruments, so I did that on there and then on the electric guitar, and we did the same on the drum overhead. The only one I would say is slightly different is the this track. It's called Fuzz Guitar. Guitar picks, that's already been panned for you. It's been pre-recorded as panned, so just be careful of that one, of doing sort of strange things. And also even with the lead guitar here, people pan this hard left and right, but actually this is sort of an extra bit and you might want to chop and change which you're using of here, or you might want to automate the pan later to change. But if we just hard pan that right, well, when the lead guitar's going it wouldn't sound quite right. So all that happens is it still just sounds everything's in the centre, just spread out a little bit more, filling that space. But it may be, for example, that you want the acoustic guitars always to the left-hand side. So you might want them over here, and you might want the electric guitar more to the right. So just because there's 2 of them doesn't mean that you can't have both going one way and both going another way. So if I just go over to where we've got a bit of both those guitars.
Anymore, and you know
I'll do it lots more.
All that you've been doing, and you know.
Now I'm not saying you want to do that extreme again, but it's something that you can do to split it up. I was just wondering, we're missing a bass. Let's just add that bass.
How much I've been hurting, and you know.
There we go. I knew there was something missing there. Okay, so that's one way of just being able to nicely pan things and think outside of the box a bit. If you listen to a lot of the early Beatles tracks, they had all of the instruments in one channel, so say the left ear, and then they had the vocals in the right ear. And lots of people have played about with doing panning like that, so you should try and listen to some of the Beatles works and do a search and see, look up different types of panning and see how things have been done. The panning also can be changed if I just increase one of these on here as well. So if you wanted to stay onto the edit window, then you can. And again, just hold down the Alt key and click, and that will put it back to 0. Okay, so I know that was quite a quick video, basically going through the different volume controls, going through normalising. Remember, hold down the Command key if you want to do small increments with things, and hold down the Alt key if you just want to bring it back to 0. Okay, in future videos I will show you how to automate the volume and the pan, but those ones will be later. Let's just concentrate at the moment to get in a general mix and then work on automation in the future. Okay, hope that was useful. Cheers.